Ubisoft just had their financial call where they said that Skull and Bones is on track for a financial 2023 release, so a release between April 2022 and March 2023, that the game just passed alpha and that they cannot wait to show more. And what you see here, by the way, are my notes from the Ubisoft investor call they just had, and right before that investor call we actually learned, thanks to a big Kotaku article, that it's not going all too well with Skull and Bones, and I will link to that article in the description. In this video I want to give you the highlights though, and why we should be kinda worried about this title that was first revealed at E3 2017. Of course, if you like the content I make here on the channel, then totally leave a like, would really help me out. And let's go. So when Skull and Bones was announced in June 2017, it was a pirate ship combat multiplayer game, and at the end of the trailer they even asked people to sign up for a beta. That never happened. Then at E3 2018 the game was shown off again, once again pushing the beta, and the trailer ended by saying that it would release in 2019, while the year before that it was fall 2018. And what is wild is that I actually played the game at E3 that year. Next to the ship combat, this new hunting grounds mode also had more free roam mechanics where you could plunder islands and even encounter NPC ships and get some nice resources from that. They had some pretty cool ideas where you could also team up with strangers to turn against them moments later and get the loot yourself. It was kinda Division Dark Zone or RuneScape Wildy style. Going back to the Kotaku article, it is mentioned that some say despite the well-received E3 blowout, the game effectively did not exist. Or that a version of what was playable at the industry events, again which I played, could have launched roughly on time in early access and matured in the wild as other games as a services have. And that might have been the best idea in retrospect, because now, according to 3 sources, the project has already cost Ubisoft more than $120 million, which will only go up of course. So before we look at what Skull and Bones might have turned into when we eventually see it, again, maybe next year, although that's like not a safe bet. I will talk about that more soon too. Let's first look at the history of this project, because it actually started as an Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag expansion in 2013. So they started before Black Flag released, and it was first planned as a post-launch update. The expansion soon took on a life of its own, however, morphing into a full-blown MMO-like spin-off with the working title Black Flag Infinite. They later got way bigger ambitions, so now it turned into the Skull and Bones we know. Or I say the Skull and Bones we know, but that's not really true, because it seems that the version I played and we all saw is no more. They first toyed around with a ton of ideas. At one point it was set in the Caribbean, later it moved to the Indian Ocean. One version was inspired by Sid Meier's Pirates and played out in a fantastical world called Hyperborea through branching multiplayer campaigns that lasted weeks. So in short, they kept working and spending time on ideas that never really made it into the actual game. So then we reach E3 2017. The game is set in 1721, at least back then. They showed off a 5v5 PvP mode, and then at E3 we could see the more unique open world PvP-VE approach. But now Kotaku notes that this version of the game would eventually get scrapped too, and by 2019 survival games like Rust and Ark Survival Evolved became Skull and Bones' new guiding stars. So Skull and Bones really moved from trend to trend, first being a PvP game like For Honor and Rainbow Six Siege, which were of course successful for Ubisoft. And then in 2019 there would be resource management elements like crafting and trading, so next to the regular sailing, fighting and looting, there would be harsher stakes for dying, adding a rogue-like edge to the pirate fantasy. But the sources talking to Kotaku, so former and current developers, noted that the game engine wasn't well equipped to take players exploring on land. So by 2020 the game changed once again. And the latest build of Skull and Bones will be different still, though many remain unsure what shape the finished game will ultimately take. Also, according to the Kotaku article, they constantly would ask the question, do you play as a pirate or do you play as a boat? Well, the latest version of the game that we will likely see when it finally gets re-revealed will have players explore the island on foot, so it will likely be more like Sea of Thieves. But yeah, they only had tools and assets for ships on the water, so they had to make land locomotion too. Skull and Bones lost 6 months to a year on issues like this alone. Other problems noted in the article are that the game is simply poorly managed, with too many senior leads but few willing to take responsibility for making difficult calls. Other developers, according to Kotaku, note that the project was rushed from the beginning. The project is now on its third creative director. So a ton of shakeups, leadership changes, developers leaving to other companies like Riot, Tencent, Facebook. A toxic workplace is noted, which we found out is sadly pretty common at Ubisoft. And after making a big part of this video when the Kotaku article went live on Tuesday, another article went up the day after, going more in depth on the work culture at Ubisoft Singapore, which I will also link to down below. Sexual harassment, radical pay disparities, bullying by managers, like this shit really has to improve, and obviously also has a big impact on the development of Skull and Bones. One current developer compared the project's trajectory to BioWare's Anthem, another big multiplayer games as a service that looked great in demos, but launched broken and incomplete. I really hope they can turn this around, because I think a Black Flag style open world multiplayer pirate game with friends could be really cool, and Sea of Thieves shows that there's a market for games like this. What is also noted in the article is that a deal with the Singapore government kinda requires this game to come out, in addition to hiring a certain number of people at its Singapore studio in exchange for generous subsidies. Ubisoft Singapore must also launch original brand new IPs in the next few years, so they kinda seem forced to launch this project one way or the other. I'm gonna be honest, I kinda lost all my excitement for the game, and I will just go in with no expectations at all. Like, I think that's going to be the best approach moving forward. Like, the takeaway really is from this article that it seems that they still are not really sure what this game is, or are close to being done. While Ubisoft keeps saying that it's slated for a release before April 2023, which just seems super unlikely, also looking at the fact that they've been delaying a ton of games left and right. I also found this tweet from a Singaporean who sometimes talks to developers working on the game. Every now and then when I hear from them, it's just so I guess that Ubisoft game is never going to be made. Damn, that doesn't sound good. And I'm also really curious how this is affecting the Assassin's Creed team inside Ubisoft Singapore. As you might know, Singapore has been doing a ton of work for the Assassin's Creed games over the years. I've shown you this map a couple of times here on the channel already, where we see that they did quite a lot for Origins. The water, naval, and some quest. And of course a part of the map. For Valhalla they did quite a lot as well, and they are even leading the development on the Siege of Paris DLC, which will of course be launching soon. So it's at least good to know that one part of Singapore is still releasing stuff, while the big main team is kind of in development hell. And I really hope they can turn this ship around and surprise everyone, especially after an article like this. Like, there are totally great developers at Ubisoft Singapore, as we've been seeing with the Assassin's Creed games over the years. It's really just that they are poorly managed, which is really holding them back. So I really hope they can surprise us. So let me know what you think of this disappointing news all around in the comments down below. You can of course also leave a question in the comments down below that I might answer in the next Sunday video. And I actually got a question from Mike about Skull and Bones, asking, do you think Skull and Bones will play like Black Flag? And I think really in a perfect world, that is where they end up. That Skull and Bones comes out and it's basically Black Flag with co-op. Obviously new world, different things to do, but still it will be that, because I think you can really easily sell that to people, and we don't have a Black Flag like experience right now. So I think that would be a huge win. We will have to wait and see. Like, I'm still curious about the game, even though my expectation is like 0. Like, maybe this game will never come out. Maybe they do end up canceling it. who knows? This once again shows that these behind the scenes issues at Ubisoft run real deep, and while they say that they've been improving, there's still a lot of work to be done to improve the world culture there for the developers, so they can ultimately focus on making the best possible games. And my goal, of course, on the channel is here to keep you up to date on all the good and bad gaming news that I think is important to know for you. And I will continue to do so through these Sunday videos and the other content here on the channel. So totally, of course, subscribe to miss nothing. A like on the video would really help me out. Yeah, a lot of Valhalla content is coming this week. We will likely hear more about the Siege of Paris too, so be on the lookout for that. You can watch my previous video on more Siege of Paris things by clicking on the screen. For now, I will speak to you next time, and goodbye.